Hello, it's Monday, February 16, 2015, 2015. What is the right way to say that? I think we're supposed to say 2015, right? We say 1915, we should say 2015. Because I used to say 2000 for so many years. We're supposed to say 2015. So it's Monday, February 16, 2015, President's Day. It was a holiday today, President's Day. Um, so some services were closed, some services were open. Did you celebrate? How did you celebrate? Does anybody really celebrate President's Day anymore? I don't know. Um, right now, flying solo tonight. Just me in the house. At the moment, as you recall, Dutch had some computer problems last week. We had to end up doing a factory reset on his computer, and it ended up with lots and lots of updates. And so he's actually in the middle of running more and more updates on his computer right now. So that's a story with that right now. Um, but if we can get started live, we're here every night, so we'll catch up with Dutch tomorrow. Um, really battling the sleep here, I tell you. Another day in a row. How many days am I gonna do this? I was up till about 6 or 7 in the morning last night. Um, I don't, what was I even watching? Marco Polo, the Netflix series Marco Polo. I enjoy that. I've seen it a couple of times. I really like it. It's just great story. I mean, it's a little hokey at times. So you have to, yeah. Let's be frank here. If you've seen it, it's set at the time of Kublai Khan, grandson to Genghis Khan. He's controlling the northern part of China. That's where his empire sits. He's the Khan of all Khans, the great Khan at the time, and the other Khanates, they're scattered around. In the part that technically he rules everything, but the part where he kind of sits, where his palace is, the northern part of China. And it's a place to China, and it's about the unification of the northern part and southern part of China under Genghis Khan, and the birth of the one of the dynasties. It's the end of the one dynasty, end of the Yuan. Now, the end of the Sung dynasty, the beginning of the Yuan dynasty. Anyway, it's during that time period, and it could have been a historical drama about Genghis Khan, really, if it wanted to be. But they decided to use Marco Polo as it's the book, The Adventures or Travels of Marco Polo. Book attributed to dictated by Marco Polo to his cellmate, whatever the whole story was there. And then the book came out, and so a lot of it's probably between Marco Polo telling the story to his prison cellmate, his cellmate writing it down. So there's a lot of maybe exaggeration, shoehorning Marco Polo into a lot of situations where maybe there are stories that he heard. So in telling the stories, he tells it as if he was there. Maybe his cellmate writing that in. So when you watch this series, there's this great, beautiful history of this transition from the Mongol Empire and the birth of the Yuan dynasty under Kublai Khan. But Marco Polo is like in every scene. It's like, okay, Marco Polo was not that ubiquitous, was he? Great word, ubiquitous. Just got to use it whenever I can. And so there were people who were a little, maybe they were one to complain to the show of the series. It's like, hey, tell, but bad pickup. This is based on the adventures or travels of Marco Polo, and that's the way this story was told through that. So that's the lens through which this was told. So that's just the way it is. The one thing they did, which was, received some, positive, press, was pretty much everybody else in the series was Asian. I mean, it's a series set in that part of Asia, and they cast thousands, and they went and they cast a lot of Asian people. I think there were still some things where some people might have been upset about some ethnicities weren't quite right. They use a person of Korean descent to play a Chinese person. But we're never going to get it right. I mean, they are just acting. At least they made the effort to make it look a little bit more authentic. It's not like when John Wayne played Genghis Khan. which that really happened. So you know, that's it's a lot better than those days. Um, anyway, so today is President's Day. That was last night. Um, I slept until 3 o'clock again this afternoon. Um, and we'll work on it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Yesterday we talked about random thoughts with random excess. Catch us on the Facebook page. We're still at 30 likes. Come in, find the page, like it. Bump us up a little bit. Um, feel free to get in on the commenting discussions on the pages. Yesterday we talked about some superstition type stuff. It was like a conversation about Friday the 13th. That just happened over the weekend, and then there was a lot of places that we don't know buildings that don't have Friday the third don't have 13th floors. And then today, I see an article. I don't know if the article was today, just a couple of days ago, to coincide with Friday the 13th, but it popped up in my news line. So now people are talking about it. How this one just mentions how in New York City, for tall condominium places, 13 or more floors, only 10% of them actually have a 13th floor. Did it say that? Did it say only 10% have a 13th floor? That seems like that doesn't seem like it could be possible, does it? Less than 10% of Manhattan condominiums with 13 or more floors label the floor with the dreaded number. Less than 10%. Can you believe that? Oh well. We talked about that yesterday. So it's something that comes up. Man, I just hadn't put my timeline, so I thought I'd mention that. I saw that there. That's pretty good. Call this episode "Who's Watching Whom." It seems like a good enough story, good enough title for especially this day and age of privacy concerns, security concerns. But drones are they're here. I mean, we've been using them to fight wars. They're getting better. We're able to put smaller, higher powered cameras on them and weapon payloads on them. So Hellfire missiles. They provide fairly stable platform when you build them right. But this is an interesting use of them. It's not brand new. This has been around for a while, but I just thought I'd mention it because again I saw it today, so it made me think about it. But it's using drones and satellites to spot lost civilizations in a desert, perhaps maybe even in some jungle. But we have these things we have up there staring down all the time, rather than having people out there looking for things. There's a use for drones and satellites to do some sort of like searching. It could be search and rescue. It could be searching, just in this case, where rather than just having people out there, because you look at a picture, you don't really appreciate the size of the Sahara Desert, maybe, or just the size of the Earth, right? You just think, just have some people out there looking. No, it's huge. So having these things looking down, and then being able to do it. So we have these space archaeologists, and airborne archaeologists or something. I think I like space archaeologists. It's a great title. So people are doing this stuff, and pretty interesting. But it's what are some other uses for drones? So we talk about maybe monitoring borders. What the FAA just this week. Here we are. We mentioned we're first part of we're in the middle of February for 2015. The FAA just this week was not going to be letting, at least at the moment, I'm pretty sure that not letting drones for watching pipelines. What I thought was like a no-brainer to me. It's like, these kind of like long stare type operations. It's seems like a drone is a no-brainer. It seems a lot better than putting cameras out there. That's kind of the alternative. You could just plant cameras out there. But if you have a problem with the camera, you got to go out there and fix it. You put a camera on a drone, you have the drones flying around. Problem with the camera, you bring the camera back, it flies back to you, you fix it, and it goes back out there. And these things are cheap enough if they crash. It's not the worst thing in the world. I don't know. Just I don't know enough about the story, I guess. But the drones are here. They're here to stay. We're going to be figuring out uses for them. One of the uses they said it wasn't going to at least the FAA is stepping in and not allowing, is at the moment allowing Amazon to use Amazon.com to use drones for deliveries. I don't even know how that would work, to tell you the truth, because yeah, it would have to be under very special circumstances. Because this little drone's going to land, people are going to take the drone and bring it in their apartment. They're going to keep the drone. They're going to smash the drones. They're going to land, and then the kid across the street's going to call it a baseball bat, and smash the drones. What do you think is going to happen with these little drones flying around delivering packages? How are they going to ensure that you get the package? Whether it's the thing's going to fly and drop the package off on your back porch, and then I'm sure they've thought about it and how it's going to work. So at least at the moment, I guess the FAA is not convinced that this is something that's useful, and that it poses more of a danger. So they're kind of putting the brakes on that. I don't like putting the brakes on driverless cars. I don't have anything here about driverless cars, but that's a big deal. That's gonna the insurance industry is gonna be against those. You know that, because with driverless cars, not as many accidents, which means he won't really be needing the insurance. So it's gonna drive. It's gonna make insurance kind of irrelevant. It's going to drive the cost way down. They're going to artificially inflate it, maybe artificially add some liability to it or something. They have to do something. They're going to think about that. But driverless cars. One of the things I know that with driverless cars is they're trying to, which I don't know, is this a good idea? They want to force the cars to have steering wheels so that a person could drive it if they had to. Because a driverless car without a steering wheel, you could really change the design. You don't even have to have a cabin necessarily for driving. That could all be enclosed, and you just have a cargo in the back, like you imagine like a truck for deliveries. Doesn't need an inside cab. Just has the bed on the back. You can load the truck up with the stuff that you want delivered, and then it just goes with an open bed or a closed truck. But it's going to be, we're going to think about how we're going to do this. There was an article, maybe I should have listed it in here, about somebody, he's a Google guy, I don't remember his name now. He was from Google, and now he does I don't know, technology, what do you call that, futurology type things. And he was projecting into the future a time where maybe cars could own themselves. So, when you put enough artificial intelligence into the car, it's a driverless car, and a way for the car to make money, basically, as a delivery, picking up packages, delivering people, that kind of thing, where it could start creating money, and then cars could, a program like Uber, where they have where they kind of set the prices and dispatch the cars. Well, that could all be happening, be all automated, and the cars themselves would have little algorithms and decide if they want to take the fare or not. Can I make it there? Can I make good money? And then ultimately, they got kind of interesting. It's like the cars could have enough money where they could order and have keep not only their maintenance and keep their fuel and everything, but they could order new cars. So a car could become like it could own other cars. I don't know. It's an interesting concept, and we have been talking a little bit about this artificial intelligence and say the Turing test, but to the point where hey, if it walks like a duck and acts like a duck, maybe it's a duck. If we can have artificial intelligence that seems to act with full agency and seems to be autonomous, who are we to say that it shouldn't? It gets kind of you have to ask those tough questions. What does it mean to be an individual? What does it mean to be conscious, sentient, to have rights in society? Those things are constantly. It feels like they're constantly changing and evolving, and we're getting to the point, at least where all humans now are getting pretty much equal rights. I mean, we're getting past a lot of privileged rights for humans, but we're going to be bumping up against what about rights for other things? I mean, I think India had a thing where they just allowed dolphins to have certain human rights. There's the same issue comes up with elephants and chimps and other higher intelligence type mammals. Maybe we ought to consider crows. Crows are very intelligent. I don't know. It's but the future's coming. That's one thing about it. When you get down to it, the future's coming. It's good to think about these things now, I think, and spend a little time thinking about it, because these are questions that are going to have to be answered in the future. Local and sustainable, I definitely believe, is coming. We can't operate a global system with the number of people that we're going to be having, with the demands on communication, um, and demands on for everything, food, water, healthcare, without local and sustainable. Uh, so once you start thinking in terms of local and sustainable, then things like driverless cars they start fitting in pretty well with that, to my mind. That's maybe another conversation, because I want to go ahead, move along here. Look at the next story of who's watching who, because that's always a good question. Is who's doing the watching? I think I talk a little bit about the universe is always talking to me. My sort of what is my spiritual framework here? It starts out with this simple stuff where I say the universe is always speaking, and the universe is never lying. I don't always hear the universe, and I don't always believe the universe. And that's just a reminder to me that whatever whatever's happening outside in the universe, that's what's happening. That is the truth. I mean, that's the sort of the final experiment. That's the final verification is what's happening in the universe, because that's what's happening. Um, I have to pay attention to it. I have to understand it. I have to believe it. We all have distorted thoughts. We have limited perspective. We make assumptions. We see patterns that aren't there. We fill in gaps that may not be real gaps, and that's the way the brain works. But we have to. I can't remember where I was going with this. Oh, but yeah, I don't know where that was going. I lost it. We got here. Who's watching who? Who's watching who? Remember Stuxnet? Got a lot more coverage than Flame did. Stuxnet was the virus that was sent over into Iran. They got the centrifuges in their nuclear power plants going, and basically it monkeyed with the control the control programs that they have there to basically run the centrifuges and make sure they're running under proper conditions, where they kind of turned off all the warnings and the danger stuff, and they just sped them up, and then they would jam them and spin them backwards, at full speed, and it did all kinds of crazy things to them like that, and burn out the centrifuges. And it was a very, very elaborate scheme to get this virus into their systems. One of the keys, which is always a great way to do it, is to put the virus on a USB stick, and on a bunch of USB sticks, right? And you scatter them out in a parking lot, where you hope somebody's going to pick up the USB stick. And what does somebody do when they find a USB stick? They stick it in a computer. Big lesson. Don't ever do that. Don't ever stick a USB stick in a computer if you don't know where the USB stick came from. That's operation security step number one. OPSEC number one. Don't ever stick anything into your computer if you don't know where it came from. If you don't know the history of that device, don't do it. But that's even not enough here. The Equation Group, which is kind of this real deep cover organization. Are they cyber criminals? Are they cyber spies? Is it a government agency? Is it the NSA? And it's not exactly clear who the Equation Group is. At least it's not publicly publicized who they are. But they are the precursor to the people who put out Stuxnet and Flame, and they're still around, and they're doing a lot of really, really interesting work. And I say interesting in the sense of may you live in interesting times as a curse. They do a lot of interesting things where they're getting in, and just your hardware, your hard drives in particular, that's just one place to say, are basically compromised. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you suspect, in fact, when you read about these, the Equation Group, and you read about what the recommendations are, if you suspect that you've been infected by their malware, their virus, by the tools that they use to exploit your system. If you suspect that your hard drive's been infected, the really the only course of action that's suggested is that you destroy it. There's nothing you can do about it. These things are very carefully written into the firmware. You can't reformat. There's no factory reset. You go back. It's always going to be there. It works. One of the things it does is it creates hidden encrypted sectors that you can't ever get rid of, where you're running it on an air-gapped system, a system that's never been connected to the internet. And it's taking all the data it wants, and it hides it, and then eventually, if that hard drive ever gets connected to the internet, it connects back to their home base and sends all the data. And so so you can't repurpose the hard drives. You can't do your air-gapped work and then think, oh, well, it's all done. Let me go ahead and I can use this computer now. I can recycle this computer as one that's connected to the network. No. It's pretty impressive stuff. They've been doing this 15 years, maybe 20 years. Very, very sophisticated, very, very high level. Very, you don't want to mess with it, but it's the nature of the beast that's out there, and they're getting really good with the government especially. Memory's getting cheap, monitoring everything on the internet. I don't want to get too worried about it, but you are being watched. It doesn't do you any good to you could try and be secretive. Using privacy and encryption. Yeah, go ahead and do it. Don't do it thinking that you're never going to get caught with whatever it is that you're up to, because there's always somebody out there who's smarter than you are. That's really what it comes down to. They've had more time to think about this. They are basically, unless you build your own hard drive from scratch. That'd be all your own software, hardware. If you build it from scratch, you have a chance. But if you're buying anything that's off the shelf, chances are it's pre-infected in a way that you're never going to know it. And that's just the way it goes. And not just from, say, the NSA, but there's also been reports of people buying stuff, off-the-shelf USBs from China that already have, malware coded right into them. So, brand new off the shelf. So even if you know the pedigree, where did this thing come from? Well, I bought it from the store fresh. It's never been used. It's still infected. So even that's not. So definitely don't accept the USB if you don't know anything about it. But even if you know about it, chances are. It's not perfectly safe. I should say chances are. But if your goal is ultimate security, forget it. It doesn't exist. It's just it's a fantasy. I love stories like this. Next one here. This is because it connects simple ideas, and I think it's one of the things I like to do is just take some time to stop and to think about things and try and connect without. Sometimes you can overconnect dots. We talked about brain is a pattern recognition machine. It even sees patterns that are not there. What science does, science is a test for patterns that are, you have a pattern, you test if a pattern persists. Is there a way I can conduct an experiment that shatters the illusion of this pattern? That's what you do with science. You're trying to disprove a hypothesis. You have a hypothesis. You have this pattern that you have this thing that you think is true. It's a hypothesis, a question you want to answer. And what you don't do in science is you don't try and prove that it's true. That's what pseudoscience does. It tries to look for evidence to support a hypothesis. We don't want to do that. The support for the hypothesis is the fact that you have the hypothesis to begin with. It's an anecdote, usually based on an anecdote. It's based on something that you saw, a pattern that you saw. And if you're looking to validate that pattern, to find more evidence to support that pattern, the brain's very clever. If that's what you're looking for, that's what you're going to find. And that's kind of what pseudoscience does. And then pseudoscience also includes those other things that now get into curing cancer with massage or homeopathy. Those are all pseudosciences. But basically, the underlying commonality there is that you're seeking to verify that something is true. Um, that's not what science does. What science does, science tries to prove that something's not true. It tries to set up conditions so that patterns we think are there no longer persist, and then we can say, no, that's not a real pattern. I was fooled. I was misled. It was just my distorted human bias. It was, there was something going on there, but it's not scientific, and so I can get rid of it and I can move on. And then as is it Holmes that says it? And I know people say it's Holmes, but I don't memorize all the Arthur Conan Doyle. But whatever remains, however improbable, is the truth. And that's what science kind of does. Is it whittles away the patterns that are not real, and then whatever is real, you have to look within there, which is really kind of interesting. That's kind of the beauty of at least when it's done right, philosophy and science. Is if you want to do philosophy, you have to do philosophy within the confines of science. I think, because that's what science does. Science kind of whittles away the stuff that you don't need to be thinking about. It's stuff that might be nice, might be fun, but if you're going to have serious philosophical thoughts, you don't want to have them wandering around outside the boundaries that science has established. You want them to happen within the bounds of scientific experimentation. And you'd like them to stand up to scientific experimentation. And a lot of things do, even things that science can't touch. If you phrase the question properly, if you phrase your thoughts properly, they can be immune to the harsh realities of science. But they have to happen within science. Even the Dalai Lama talks about this. He says, something along the lines of, if there was ever anything that science contradicted, any basic core beliefs of Buddhism that were contradicted by science, I would have to change the beliefs, not the science. He says something along those lines where he recognizes that, right? It's just that it's not that we can learn everything about the universe with science, but what we can do is we can know what not to look at, what not to consider, what to move aside, so that what remains, that it kind of limits where the playground is that we let our thoughts wander. And there's actually a kind of an ongoing debate, a battle, probably stemming from the 90s, postmodern philosophy, where there's like a anti-science movement. Science is just religion for smart people, kind of thing, and that it's and it tries to put it all on the same footing as, say, creationism and evolution, on the same footing, because they're both, one is a scientific theory, but what is science? But just making assumptions, and that led to some backlash, and especially at that time, students in university, backlashes all came out of universities, right? Because of postmodernism. So science students at that time maybe took arms a little bit against philosophy, and then some of those people rise to power to become famous scientists now. But there's this lingering anti-philosophical bent to some of the things they say. Not to call any names, but a lot of the new atheists maybe fall in that category. Maybe not not technically a new atheist, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's made some sort of anti-philosophical statements. Certainly Lawrence Krauss, who would be a new atheist. Maybe Sam Harris. Richard Dawkins. Some people, they have this is, they brush up against philosophy a little bit, where it's like we maybe go back to more traditional. Let's go back in time. There was a time when science and philosophy were getting along really well, and I think there's some of that going on now. I mean, science of philosophy, philosophy of science is a thing now. It has always been a thing, but now it's it's going to be a more popular thing, I guess. People talking about it a little bit more. But we need to limit our philosophical thoughts, I think, to what science carves out. Because what science does is it eliminates patterns we shouldn't be looking at. because they're patterns that are not there. One of the things with philosophy is we want to struggle with things that we we don't know for sure if they're true, but we'd like to be able to assert that they're true. We'd like to, be academically have some academic integrity, right? Some intellectual honesty when we say, I'm going to propose this thing. I don't know if it's true or not, but I want to propose it as a kind of a possibility. Well, if you're saying something that's already been shut down by science, you're not impressing anybody. You just, move along. Pick something else to talk about. So I think there needs to be a close relationship between the two of those. And again, science is not going to be able to prove everything. That's not what science tries to do. But it does try to eliminate things that don't need to be there, so that whatever does remain, no matter how improbable, it's definitely getting closer and closer to the truth. I mean, if not the truth, it's definitely it can't be rejected. So how did all that start? I see this story here about infectious diseases are rising in animal populations due to climate change. Say what? But things are connected. Science is going to make certain predictions. I mean, we could do the scientific research and we can look into it and see if it does pan out. It makes sense that if we're going to have climate change, that infectious diseases should start probably increasing, because one of the things that climate change does do is it starts reshuffling environments. Environments start changing. Once environments start changing, then animal populations start changing their behavior. If they change their behavior, you're going to be encountering new situations that you didn't encounter before, especially situations where maybe you're not immune to. Certain political strife in Europe led to political religious strife in Europe led to people coming to the New World, led to disease spreading and wiping out, by some estimates, 95% of the indigenous population over here killed by disease, and that was due not to climate change, but to political climate change. Political climate change in Europe wiped out native populations in North and South America because, again, animal populations have to start changing their behavior, and when animal populations start changing their behavior, you're going to get exposures that you've never had before, and that's going to lead to an increase in infectious disease. So I saw that it was an interesting article, and there's some research here. Again, these articles are on our Facebook page. I don't want to read the articles to you. I mean, I just think it's you can find them, look them up yourself. Come to our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and you can see them. I like just talking about sort of like what they make me think about. Hey, that's pretty interesting stuff, and it's fun when it does make sense. And again, this was like a hypothesis. It'd be something that you could guess is going to happen, but then they go and then they actually do the research, and either the hypothesis is eliminated. You don't start looking for rising infectious diseases. What you start trying to do is saying, can I connect this to climate change? If yes or no, kind of questions. And it turns out that you can't discount it. That it seems like it is looking like climate change is the driver here, because that's what's causing shifts in populations. And then that shift in population is now leading to the spread of these diseases. So wrap it up now. All right, it sounds like a pretty good night. Got some interesting. I thought some interesting things there. At least I felt interesting. Wrap up with a little Twitter update. As you know, we have the RTWRE hashtag. Go ahead and give us send out a tweet using the hashtag. We'll see it. Or you can follow us at Random Access on the Twitter page, so you can actually follow the Twitters. Stuff from Facebook gets sent to the Twitter, so you can just follow Twitter and you can see all the Facebook stuff. And following the Twitter, you can also get access to Twitter-specific content. And I also use it as my personal Twitter, so some things that are just not necessarily random thoughts with Random Access, they're just Random Access being goofy and silly on the page. We always wrap it up here with the count Twitter followers. Our all-time low has been 949. That's the all-time low since we started the show. Obviously, it was 0 when I started the account 5 years ago. But since I started the show 51, 52 nights ago, we've done it now 51 nights after the night. The low has been 950. The high is 960. And this is 951, same as yesterday. So get us on the feedback line. That's good in U.S. and Canada. You can call us up 1-5-189-666-175. So that's 1-5-189-666-175. Sorry, 1-5-189-666-175. Good in the U.S. and Canada. 3 to 4 during the week, 3 to 5 on the weekends, and 11 to midnight after the show. We miss Dutch tonight. He had, like I said, his computer updates going on, taking much longer than he had anticipated. But not surprising considering he had to do a complete factory reset on his computer and got a lot of updates that had to be caught up. We'll be back tomorrow for 7.2. Maybe not tomorrow. I don't know. We're looking toward maybe doing not every night. Maybe just do it 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week. We'll see. But if we're back tomorrow night, it'll be 7.2. If we're back some other night, it'll be 7. Some other number, because the numbering scheme is purposely make it weird, so that we don't want people to be able to follow what we're doing here too easily. Thanks a lot, and take care, and we'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.